Look at them. They're so sweet. It's crazy to think they're going to be 69ing later.
No one's 69s anymore. Can't give and receive pleasure at the same time. You're just going to do them both badly.
I'm gonna need someone to help me. I'm gonna need somebody.
Do you ever think about cheating on me?
If I ever do cheat on you, it's going to be a cash transaction with a guaranteed ejaculation, after which she immediately leaves so I can ponder suicide because of how guilty I feel.
Aww.
I'm going to be a husband and a dad once, I'm going to do a good job, and then I'm going to die.
Amen to that.
I had to hang out with the mombies.
Oh no, not the mombies.
What's going on with you crazy bitches?
I just realized who she reminds me of. You know the actor Gene Wilder?
My baby doesn't look like Gene Wilder.
I'd like to have sex with you.
Me too. Can we do it in the morning?
You know what? Sexual rain checks are abusive.
What?
Son of a bitch! Give me a drink. One more night. On a scrappy thing. Son of a bitch! If I drink it clean, I'm gonna drink my life away.
Are we sexually incompatible now?
No, we're just stressed.
Okay. Because I still fancy you.
I very fancy you. Well, hey, look, something's happening down there.
It's not.
Son of a bitch! Give me a drink. One more night. Scrappy thing.
Hi.
Guys, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on
Hi.
season 2.
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
love season 2. I was lucky enough, they gave me all the episodes, and I watched all of them yesterday from like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Oh, wow,
They're
thank you.
so much fun, and you kind of can't stop watching them once you start. I
That's
want to
good.
know, in writing a show like this, both of you are married, both of you have kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go into a season like this, which is essentially about marriage, about having kids, how a couple sort of stays fresh and keeps things together? Are you using a lot of examples from your personal life? Is it somewhat cathartic for you?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's cathartic for me. Is it cathartic for you?
No.
What?
Nothing creative to me is cathartic. To me, like, therapy is cathartic, or crying on a couch by myself. But usually when I do anything creative, I'm too busy thinking of all the details and stuff to have any sort of human emotion while it's happening.
Well, we don't really do therapy in England. We just like to
true.
keep it all inside and then die early.
There's no self-analysis in England?
No.
Very little, only if you have a TV show. I definitely found it therapeutic, but kind of after. I mean, there's definitely stuff that I decided not to discuss with my husband, issues I had, that we ended up putting in the show that, I was like, oh, that's done.
Do you worry what he's going to respond to that? Because sort of what you could end up putting into a show could also have your take on something that happened that might be different than what you actually said in that situation. Like, sort of where you have to push a scene to go narratively could be read as where you might have actually wanted it to go in reality.
I think generally it's just there's an overall kind of disappointment that in the show I get things dealt with and we talk, and he's just generally just very disappointed.
So your husband's just kind of like, you're so open with Rob on the show. What is going on here?
I do like the idea, though, of like, because any argument I have with my wife, I lose bitterly, and then maybe reenacting it on the show where I win. I think that's actually a good idea.
I love there's a really fantastic anniversary scene between the two of your characters. I don't necessarily want to give it away, but this idea that where we pick up with these two characters, they've been together now for a few years, they've got, I don't want to give, what can I give away here? I'm so sorry.
I don't know. I feel like
a show
everyone
that
kind of
starts
knows.
this way, I get very worried about spoilers.
Yeah.
There are so many out there, and I don't think the actual facts are as important as, the way that they're executed, so.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be a hindrance to the show if the only thing that was exciting was where the show picked up from.
Yeah,
And then I was
data points that you collect per episode, that's it, that's
5
all it
episodes
is.
in, I was like, it was really great in the first couple minutes when they
yeah.
started at this thing.
Yeah.
I'm wondering where that scene comes from, because you've already mentioned crying and this anniversary scene where you're kind of like, every anniversary we just cry together.
I think it might be the fact that Sharon and Rob in the show go through things really faster than you should, and of course that happens in real life, but I think for them, anniversaries can be a time where reflection happens, that they've just been moving too many hundreds of miles an hour too fast to really process them. So I think, they talk about, one of the child's health issues that coincided with the date of their marriage and stuff. So I think it's an organic time for them to kind of fall apart a little bit, just once a year.
And then, I mean, from a real life perspective, we both kind of agreed that and anytime you try and do anything where there's a build up and you're supposed to be having fun, it just is always awful.
Yeah.
There's that horrible relationship thing where both sides of the relationship on anniversaries or birthdays, like, I got to do this, I got to make it amazing, I got to make it super fun for them.
Yeah.
And then the other person says one minor criticism that isn't even that bad. Any other day you'd be okay with. And you're like, fuck you, I worked hard on this.
It all falls apart.
Yeah.
With this show, you go into the season talking about keeping a marriage together, and a lot of it is about the sex life between a married couple who've had kids, which is a subject that's been well covered in television and movies, but you do find a way to keep it fresh in it, and I think it has to do with, one, the charisma between the two of you, as well as, two, trying to explore the honesty between the lines there and not just the humor of, like, no sex. So how did you go about writing those scenes, and did you ever fear that you were maybe mining from territory that had already been covered?
Yeah, I mean, it was scary because we did feel like it had been done before, but I don't know. We were kind of, it was tough because in the first series, people liked the sex because it was honest and real and a bit wrong. And so we,
in it.
yeah, there was pizza.
Surprise, surprise, people liked the sex in a TV show.
And so we knew we were going to jump forward and it was going to be, much further into the relationship, therefore a lot less sex. But then we thought, but people like the sex. So we just made it, I don't know, just sort of more functional. And sometimes, in a long-term relationship, you don't necessarily particularly want to, but you do. And just the dance around that and the negotiation and just sort of getting one in quickly when you can. And
and also the pressure that you put on it to have it, which then hinders the sex. Like the idea of rain check sex and him talking about it being abusive, even in the trailer, is like, oh yeah, it is that thing that men feel like, well, now I got to think about tomorrow. How's this going to happen?
I think it's just all becomes a bit political, doesn't it?
It can, yeah. We talk about the argument of like why to be faithful within a marriage, and I read something yesterday in the New York Times review of books about monogamy, and I finally found a good argument for it.
What is it?
Which is that if men are monogamous, then they're more likely to just be around their children because of institutional sexism and patriarchy. Women are just going to have the kids with them, but if the man is faithful to the woman, then he's going to have a relationship with his kids, and I think that's kind of nice. I can't think of a reason spouse-wise why somebody would be, but if it's for the kids, I think that's a great reason.
It all comes down to the kids.
That is not a new reason. That's the reason that people have been using for not getting divorced for 50, 60 years now.
I was not aware of that.
How do you guys write together at this point? I mean, I know the first series sort of came from a relationship that you guys built off of Twitter, right? You sort of found each other there and pitched.
Well, that's just how we met.
Okay.
I essentially wrote Sharon on Twitter because I was crazy about certain television shows that she had made in the UK. So I just wrote her and said, "Will you be my friend and will you make a multi-season hit show with me?" That takes place. Yeah, and she said, "Yeah." And so we cooked up our idea over a couple of years of bouncing ideas around, and we just wanted to do something. We thought it would be good if a man and a woman wrote it, so you could have those two sensibilities operating on the thorny issues that coupling brings up.
I wish we had written it all through Twitter, every single bit of it, just 140 whatever characters back and forth. No
When
spoilers.
people went to watch the show, like, oh, I read this on Twitter. I remember that. They were just going back and forth for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, we just kind of had to get to know each other properly because it's quite an intimate thing to sit side by side and tell someone jokes and not be afraid for them not to laugh. And so it was just, but it happened fairly quickly once we got going.
Is that how you guys write together? You do it you actually do it in a room together and pitch jokes back and forth?
We
do
prefer
if we
to.
can, yeah.
I mean, we have written at times where I'm in LA and Sharon's in New York, or vice versa, or whatever. And I'll write for a few hours and then go to sleep, and she'll wake up and read it, and then rewrite and add stuff and do new scenes, and then so we can write around the clock, sort of.
But there's never really a sense of pitching jokes to each other. We just kind of turn up and it's a conversation, which I think is why the show has a lot of, chat in it. It's the two of them really just sort of talking to each other, which is, I think, why their relationship feels good and real on screen,
It goes back to when I was asking about sort of doing a series about a couple not having sex and working through that. What works about that is not trying to come up with sort of big sitcom-y jokes, but people talking it through and being just generally funny people trying to work it out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if anything sounds sitcom-y, we just sort of put it in the trash.
Unless it's a pratfall, then we're both game for
Yeah.
that. Anything overt slapstick, we're happy to
Who
put
comes
that
up
in.
with the most sitcom-y jokes of the two of you that you have to be like, oh, no, we're not going to do that one?
That's like asking us, which one of you is less funny?
Which one of you is the
Who's
bigger
not
asshole?
good? Who's not good at your
Guys,
job?
what do you think? No.
Who carries the other one? I don't know. I'm sure we've both come out with terrible ideas before, but it's our responsibility to each other to beat those terrible ideas out of each other and come up with something better and funnier.
Yeah, there's violence.
Well, what's the biggest trouble that you had in writing this series? Like, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to get over?
I think it was expectation, maybe.
Expectations.
We were really surprised that everyone was so positive about the first series, and when they were, and when everyone said so many nice things, we were like, oh, we have to sort of listen to this and listen to the things that they specifically said they liked. It was really hard not to. And apart from that, it was... The other thing that people liked was that the romance of it, and trying to keep the romance when you're describing a sort of a long-term relationship that's mired by child. So I think they were kind of tough. I think the rest of it just sort of...
Well, and then just functionally, fun fact, we wrote one final episode for this season that wasn't good, and then we decided to write one that was good.
Yeah, it's always scary when you write an episode that's not good and you're running out of time and you have to.
Usually we'll
start
rewrite it,
again.
but that one we were like, I think what we'll do is throw that one
Yeah.
away. And then we wrote a
Can I
new
ask
one.
what wasn't good about the final episode?
It just didn't make sense. I think it had something maybe a little stunty in it that didn't quite feel real enough.
I think-
Sort of went
think
for
it
a
was-
final episode. You were
Ye-
like, this has to be the...
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we went way too far with this sort of climax. I think we just went too far too quickly. It's definitely an episode that will be in the less successful season 4.
Yeah, we tried to weave a little too much science fiction into it, and that was a mistake.
So your feeling is, we cut it for season 2, but at season 4 we get real desperate. We'll throw it back.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm only joshing. But I think the main reason why we had it is because we loved Carrie Fisher in the first
Yeah.
season, and it was a big sort of Carrie Fisher-based episode. And then it was set in Boston, and we didn't deserve to go to Boston yet.
And we weren't able
You
to
have to-
afford the insurance to shoot inside the actual Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, so we found another way to get Carrie Fisher in it, which is the first episode.
I mean, I probably asked you guys this with last season, but I mean, Carrie Fisher, she's just incredible. And I think the world had the opportunity to get to see her doing press for Star Wars this
Oh,
past
so
year.
good.
So great.
It's just, I mean, that Today Show appearance or Good Morning America appearance, wherever it was,
Yeah.
was like literally the greatest 7 minutes of television I think I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life, with
Yeah.
a dog and totally confusing. What's it like working with her? What's it like having her on set? I imagine she's just sort of like that person who's constantly just spewing honest things, whether you want them to or not.
Constantly, and she's a great storyteller, and she's a good name dropper, and
And she's kind and sensitive. She's sweet. I mean, it's just a pleasure to have her around.
She likes to play, she likes to try things out and have fun, and we have limited budget and limited time, so sometimes it can't all go in there, but we just spend most of our time
If
just
another
laughing.
actor goes to improvise, we'll be like, sorry, Carrie's here today. So
Yeah.
That's kind of her thing.
We shut it down. Go, Carrie.
Don't let Carrie see you improvising. We got to go here. Come on. Do you guys improvise at all with each other on set, or do you stick mainly to the script?
We stick insanely to the script.
How do you maintain that such a natural feel to it? I mean, that's just acting, obviously, but you do have a feel to it that does feel very conversational all the time. Do you have to sort of build yourself up to a point where you start hitting the lines and you're already in what feels like a conversation?
We've read it many times before we even get to set. I mean, we can't, as we write, we read constantly. So anything that sounds not like talking, we scrub and, start again. So I think that's it, isn't it? So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of times you'll see on sitcoms people will say something incredibly clever, and you're like, I think 13 people might have written that and punched it up for, and we make sure that ours could never be mistaken for that. We want it to sound like normal human speech.
Yeah.
So we really try to strip out the clever and just make it feel real.
Do you ever find yourselves rewriting on set when you're doing the scenes? Do you find yourself sort of rethinking what you've written, or are you just trying to get through
Really,
it?
the tiniest bit. Like, I might say, honestly, I'll come up to you and be like, what would you think? And this is a little crazy, but if he said "and" here instead of "but," I mean, will I not?
That's really true,
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
So,
And
yeah.
I'll go and let me play with that.
Yeah.
No, let's give it that.
It's a bit. That's a little sassy. Why would you do that?
Now, Sharon, the show is through your production company, right?
Well, no, it's Avalon, and it's my production company, and it's Rob's production company.
Oh, and
it's
it's
kind
Rob's
of a
production
joint.
It's a big party.
It's a big
Sorry,
party of
guys,
production
sorry.
companies.
Well, I know that you're a director as well, right?
Yes, I direct a little.
Did you direct episodes of the show?
No. We have an incredible director, Ben Taylor, who's been with it from the very
Is he a
start.
BAFTA nominee?
He is a BAFTA-nominated director for the program Catastrophe.
Was he the only comedy director nominated for a BAFTA?
He
this year?
was actually,
Oh, so
yes.
the rest of it was all dramas, like Wolf
Yeah.
Hall?
Yeah,
How
big-
about
big
that?
dramas like Wolf
How
Hall.
about our director, Ben Taylor?
I get it. I should have done more research. I get it, guys.
No, not that you should know that. It's just fun for us to say that.
He's incredible, and he's as much a part of the
Yeah.
creative team, and how it looked and the feel of it and the pace of it and everything.
He's gifted.
Yeah, he's super gifted.
What was the look, and what were those conversations like when it came to developing the show? What the look of it was going to be?
I think we wanted it to be have the sort of production values of a drama. We didn't want it to be
For a film, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want it to have any sort of sitcom-y. We didn't want it to be overly lit. We didn't want to jump in with a load of close-ups. We wanted to, just for it to feel organic, and we didn't want any shaky camera, but we didn't want to have too much sort of locked off kind of shots. And it was just for the direction to complement the writing, I think,
Does he sit down with you guys while you're writing at all? Does he work with you on the writing, or is it just kind of you come in with the scripts and you guys really talk about what you're thinking with it, and he throws ideas with you?
Yeah, well, we give him
We'll
very
send
early
him drafts
Yeah.
because we want his input because it's
Yes.
good.
Yeah. We give him early sort of drafts of it, and then it's, just a conversation after that. But we completely trust him, and the thing is, it means that, because we're in it a lot, so it means that we can just really concentrate on what we're doing and on the performance stuff. And
You're rarely going back to look at the monitor or check your performance.
oh, we
If he
do a
says-
bit of that.
Oh, we'll look at the monitor. If she's in a scene and I'm not, I'll be watching the
Yeah.
monitor.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
It's
Is that true?
control freakery
Absolutely.
There, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, just because it's fun to see. I mean, it's also educational for me. I've made less television than either of them. So, yeah, I love to be privy to every aspect.
And I think it's good for the writers to do that, and especially writer-performers, because there are little things that can turn a non-funny moment into a funny moment. I mean, it's just timing, and so... and how a line is delivered. So we're a
Then
bit...
what if an actor who's in for just a day wants to switch an and for a but? I got to go in and discipline him.
Yeah.
How do you discipline him? What do you do? You're fired.
Well, I tell him, we don't just, write it in. We're also the executive producers, and if you're interested in this job, then you better get your shit together. Or there's the door. I'm just kidding.
As writer-performers, when you go into writing a second season for this, obviously you said you were sort of trying to live up to your and other people's expectations after the first season. But as a writer and as a performer, do you go in and think to yourself, well, I'd really like to perform a scene like this. Can we try writing that? Or as a writer, I'd really like to try writing this with the character, and let's try to fit that in somewhere or see if we can work our way up to that?
No, but something like that where we may back something in is we might have an issue that we're thinking about, like philosophically as it relates to relationships or the world, and we'll be like, we have an idea that we'd like to espouse, and oh, look at that, we have a TV show to do it in. So that's the only sort of thing we'll ever sort of back in. Like if they're in bed having a discussion about something, then that might be something one or both of us really cares about and is interested in. But otherwise, it's just story.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's very structured how we write, and we know what scenes we want to get down, and we know what story we want to tell. But then sometimes we'll begin a day just talking and end up sort of almost transcribing that conversation, and then we think, oh shit, we better find a scene to sort of fit round this conversation. And it's a fun way to do it, because I think that's one of the reasons it doesn't feel so sitcom-y, you know, because it's not entirely linear. It kind of goes off and meanders and stuff like that.
Absolutely. You've said that you're obviously clearly comfortable shooting the sex scenes that you have to do after the first season. You said that people
So
like
comfy.
it. So comfortable. What were you most nervous about going into shooting this season? Because you write the whole show and then you shoot, right? Is that the
Yes.
process with the
Yeah.
show?
Yeah.
So was there any particular scene that you were nervous going into shooting that you had never done before, or felt like a great challenge for you as an actor, as a performer?
Maybe in the first episode, much of which takes place at a party,
Yeah.
that has technical challenges that other things don't. So, and you've got to kind of wear more hats and something like that. But if it's just us, or if it's just like Sharon and Ashley Jensen or something, those you kind of know all the variables there, like what could happen. But if it's a bigger, more complex thing, then we're thinking about that a lot more.
I think you know, we try and keep it interesting for us in the writing process, and so deciding to write an episode that's pretty much all set in one room, well, you know, one house, but almost all in one room. It was a really great challenge, but a lot of the time we were thinking, shit, this is a really bad idea. This is not going to be interesting visually, and how is it going to work? And luckily, we've got a great director to make it work. But
Yeah, we did, I guess, place some restrictions on ourselves.
Yeah.
What I think is fun to do in that first episode, it's primarily in that one room, and then the fourth episode takes place exclusively in one day from sunrise to a little after sunset. So it can be fun to do that and see where it forces you to go to keep it entertaining.
were you, I mean, maybe when you had to be completely pissed in episode 6, was that something that you sort of worried about
Pissed
doing?
means drunk
Oh,
in
sorry.
Irish.
I was so confused.
Was I concerned about that? I mean, just from a technical
Because
perspective.
I would, in episode 3, I get pissed drunk.
Yeah.
And I find it's hard to act
Yeah,
drunk.
you got to do that. I mean, I would watch you spin around before playing drunk, so I thought, oh, I too shall spin around to approximate.
Is that really what you do?
drunkenness.
I do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it helps your eyeballs sort of wobble a bit, and you know you're off balance.
Although one time
slightly.
I was spinning and then I turned around. I won't spoil it, but there's a character experiencing extreme duress, somebody that we
Oh,
really
yeah.
care about, and I spun around and then I saw this actor pretending to be doing something, and I just started to cry in front of a makeup girl because I saw my buddy pretending to be hurt, and I was dizzy, and it made me sad in my feelings.
It made me sad with my feelings.
Drunk it seems like it would be really hard to perform, though, because it's an element of you need the audience to know that you're drunk, but at the same time, you don't want to overperform it. You
Right.
don't want to do that kind of classic, like,
Yeah.
I'm really drunk.
Yeah.
At the same time, how's the audience going to know that you're blackout drunk?
Precisely.
That's it. And there are some people who are kings of acting. drunk.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see some real master classes in that, and
I was
my
talking to
God.
my friend Denzel the other day,
Who?
Washington. I was talking to a television screen that he was on, and
Man on Fire is
yeah.
Denzel Washington.
And he was talking about how it's, you know, when you're drunk, you're generally struggling to project control. So it's actually trying to, you know, pretend like I've got it together. And if you try to really act like you've got it together, you're going to seem like you totally don't. Anyway, that's what D-Dub said
that was so nice of him to give you that advice.
through a television.
Yeah.
Watching the behind the scenes of Flight.
Literally.
DVD.
But I think he knows I was watching. I mean, it's not like he was saying it to anybody who might be watching. It was mostly for me.
And at the end of every sentence, you just see him going, Rob. When it comes to this show, you know, I feel like everybody's single life is the same, but everybody's married life seems different. Do you
You know what?
find-
I just want to stop here a second. That sounded pithy and true, but is it? Just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know. I mean, like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know.
I just feel like married people, and maybe it's just because they end up sort of having the shows
Mm-hmm.
eventually at a certain age. You know, you're old enough to sort of have the connections, get a show or something
Yeah.
like that, and at that point you might be married. But the stories always seem to be better, and married people always seem to have stories about their marriage because they are all kind of different, and there's so much work that goes into even the best one. Do you find that you have a plethora of content all the time that you can sort of pull from as married people with children?
I mean, yeah,
far.
and I hope it continues because that's all we got. Yeah, I mean, from ourselves and also from friends, we kind of.
But this is funny and catastrophe-esque. what you said. I think it was maybe Tolstoy who said that happy people are all the same, but miserable people, it's a different, everybody's misery
Happy
is
families
different.
are all the same, but every miserable family is different.
Exactly.
Along those lines.
Catastrophe, Friday, Amazon Prime. You know what I mean? Like, because there are aspects of that where just it's a more nuanced thing. It's a richer tapestry, I think. Being
They are
married.
not a miserable family. They're a
No.
really happy family, and it's owed to them being able to talk about their misery, which is so great about the show. It's a couple who are really open to talking about misery, which in a sense makes them happier together.
I think that would be,
Yeah.
I think that makes people stronger as well to acknowledge the pain.
I think there's some time for audience questions. Does anyone have any questions out there?
Hey guys.
Hashtag.
Oh yeah, appropriate for a day like today. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Amazon's very lucky to have you. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
This question's for Sharon. I'm a city guy, and all I know is the grittiness of New York. So I was reading a little bit about your upbringing, and whenever I read about someone who is around open space and clean air, it warms my heart. So I'd like to know a little bit more about your upbringing and if you have any pleasant memories when it comes to living the farm life.
Living the farm life. When you live the farm life, all you want to be is a city girl. I was brought up on a turkey farm, so most of my childhood was spent surrounded by turkeys. It's, how would I describe it? It's a very Christmas-based life. I was kind of isolated from anything exciting that was happening. So I think maybe that gives you a good sort of internal life, you know. I spent a lot of time in sheds, pretending, writing and pretending I was a successful actor. We weren't even allowed go to the local pub. I mean, we weren't allowed to do anything. So you just...
You ever put on plays with the turkeys or anything? Sorry.
No, but the first thing I ever directed was about, life on a turkey farm at Christmas, which sounds awful, but it's really good. But no, you kind of had to just make your own fun. And I think that's a good sort of basis for becoming a writer, because there's nothing else to do but just be in here. And then you're let loose on the city and you go wild and you come off the tracks and you stay off them for about 10 years. And then you have a lot of making up to do, so you work very hard. The end.
That's about right. That is about right. Next question.
Hey guys, so writing the show, did you guys have like any disagreements when it came to writing the episodes? And if you did, what was how did you guys come to an understanding?
I think we're pretty good. Am I supposed to repeat that? It seemed like you were
you're
threatening
good.
to repeat it. Okay, yeah. Do we ever have any disagreements about what we're going to write? And then if we do, how do we resolve it? We kind of really don't, you know? I mean, if we do, we resolve them pretty well, because like if I have an idea and Sharon thinks it could be made stronger, she only is saying that or offering input because she wants the show to be better, and I'd like that too. So we're pretty... one thing that I think is great about us is how humble we both are in terms of, our ideas. Yeah, we're happy to, throw them out there, but, anytime you want to tinker with anything I think up, please do. That's how I feel.
I think it's got both our names on it, and so anything that Rob says that's funnier than what I put down, I'm more than happy for it to go in there. There's no ownership. There's not a feeling of ownership on our own words or thoughts. It's only pride in the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think it's weird that we don't. It's weird that we don't argue about scripts more. It's just it's the whole thing's weird.
Yeah, pretty odd, pretty strange. But if we did have any problems, we would work it out, and problems are fine to have, as long as you figure it out.
Next question.
Hey, thanks for coming. I love the show. I have problems too. It's funny you were talking about people enjoying having sex, because I almost turned off this show because I was not in the mood to watch people having sex. And then you threw the room service or the tray off the bed, and I was like, this show's funny. And I know you're saying you don't push clever topics on this show, but one thing that stood out to me is you guys were in bed and you made some kind of comment basically about fast fashion or fashion in Bangladesh and how all our clothes are processed in another country versus by children slaves and things like that. How do you just decide certain issues you want to weave in, or like that day maybe there's like an article you read? Like, how do you decide?
That's a great question, and also a great sweater.
Thank you.
That
It's
you're
from
wearing.
Brooks Brothers.
Is it really?
Yes.
Sweater. That means jumper, or jumper means sweater. In
It's nice
American.
to explain it to the woman. It's
But well, I wanted to know what you're wearing. Yeah, we do like to drop little nuggets in there, like talking about global warming, being more dangerous to Bangladesh than it is to us, or the horrible things that are happening in Syria. It is fun to pepper a romantic comedy sitcom with some barbed stuff. But I think couples talk about that in bed. I mean, if you leap awake in bed, it can often be because of some crazy thing that you have no control over that vexes you. So we just try to keep it real. So we don't have a political agenda we're trying to grind with the show, but that stuff does come up from time to time, so we don't want to omit it.
Yeah, and I think it's also when we do think of it, we're sort of, if we're challenged by something or we think there's something that might be hard to put into a comedy, we're more than likely going to try and put it into a comedy, because it's interesting for us, and I think, and it's more unexpected. Any kind of topic that doesn't feel like it could fit in any comedy, we'll try and put it in ours.
And at the same time, this is the type of comedy where not every scene, every beat has to be plot-driven or has to be sort of driving the narrative straight to the end that you're heading towards. There's so much room for sort of realistic tangents, like you said, a couple having this kind of conversation together.
Yeah, and we were kind of very inspired by Richard Linklater and Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, and the way they can just talk, and it's, they do 20-minute long takes where they're really just having discussions, and they're so incredibly funny and dramatic and riveting, and we sort of said to ourselves, let's have a go at that, and then realized, we realized then we only had 24 minutes, and you can't put a 20-minute conversation in a 24-minute TV show, but it did make us want to explore the idea of just talking and seeing how interesting or how riveting it would be just to watch two people in bed having a conversation.
To the point that we'd wondered for a while when we were writing the first season if perhaps almost every episode would begin like how Seinfeld originally began, with him doing stand-up, and then it would be thematically addressed in the show. We wondered, is every episode going to begin with them talking in bed about something and seeing, it didn't, but we thought about
it
that.
nearly did. I mean, a lot of it begins with just the two of them and a conversation, whether it's like a walkie-talkie one or a lie-in-beddy one.
Did this in many ways start with stuff like Before Sunrise, in the sense where you were like, what are things that you like, what are things that I like, inspirations? I mean, I would also imagine if I was writing or making a romantic comedy and I used Before Sunrise or any of those movies as like a tentpole, it'd be like making a gangster movie and watching The Godfather and being like, I can't do that.
I know, but
just the best.
Well, the good news, I think, for us is that we were almost done writing the first season when we saw Before Midnight, the third and, in my opinion, strongest of those films.
I would agree with that.
So I called Sharon. I was like, "You gotta watch it right now!" And that more felt like, it's not like we made big changes after we saw it, but we sort of relaxed a little bit, and in the rewrites allowed ourselves to stretch out more if we felt it made sense, because we felt that something that just sort of, I felt like it lit our path a little bit, and sort of I let it give me permission to imagine more in that direction.
But it is good to set yourself super high standards as well, in terms of what you admire and what you aspire to. So, like we were watching Louis at the time, and like the Before trilogy, and we were watching The Heartbreak Kid and all
the original.
Yeah, of course. All the the kind of stuff that we found straddled sort of comedy and drama, and still really made you laugh out loud, but also made you really sort of think or feel sad or any of those things.
Yeah, but like if you're a kid watching at home, you know, like you should, if you're making a gangster film, you should remember that The Godfather exists, or how dare you make a film if it can't, you know. So like when I go do stand up, I remind myself, oh, Chris Rock does this, you know, or like Led Zeppelin performed on this stage. Better bring it, you know what I mean? If people paid and got a babysitter to come to the show, like if you're gonna make anything, you should make it the best that you can.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question from the audience right there.
Hi guys. This season you take some time to focus on a lot of the supporting characters. There are some scenes with them alone. I was wondering why you made that decision, especially, and if you thought it was risky given how beloved these characters are, and just kind of what your process was for including a bit more of that.
Well, we wanted to include them more because we saw when we made the first season how great they all were. And in the first season, there was only one scene in the entire thing that didn't have either me or Rob in it, and we enjoyed that scene. It was one of our favorites, and we just loved the idea of exploring their worlds and issues and their own sort of catastrophes. And also, it gave us a little bit of a break away from, I mean, it was hard being in every scene, and we just loved watching them.
Yeah, if you have Ashley Jensen, Mark Bernard, Jonathan Forbes, Daniel LePayne, the actors that we're so lucky to have, then you should use them because they're just so amazing. And we didn't know who we were writing for when we wrote the first season. Everybody was cast after that. So once we got to see them, we were so enamored of them and what they could do that just selfishly we wanted to watch them more.
Guys, I love the show. When does it premiere on Amazon?
The 8th.
Friday.
Friday the 8th. People can watch all of the season, right?
They can if they like.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you should. It's great. It's a great binge watch.
Or they
Or
could
you can
just
parcel
watch
it
one
out.
a week.
Yeah. No?
That's not how you
Okay, you
want
got to watch
it.
them right away.
You can watch it however you like. Congratulations so much on season 2, guys. Thanks
Thank
for being
you.
here.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.